Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Horizon 3 Fireside Chat, where we're going to dive into all things Node Zero and cybersecurity. I'm McKenna Dahlmeyer, the Federal Success Lead here at Horizon 3, and joining me today is Aaron Solar, the CFO and CIO of Adaptic. Aaron brings over 25 years of expertise in cybersecurity, systems engineering, database management, business intelligence, analytics, and surprisingly, accounting. His experience is as vast as it is impressive, ranging from tracking New Hampshire Girl Scout cookie sales and commissions for his daughter, because let's be honest, managing Thin Mint logistics is no joke, to deploying enterprise-class business intelligence solutions across the globe. So whether it's securing networks or securing your access to Samoas, Aaron definitely knows his stuff. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you. That is an excellent bio of myself. So I give you an A+ on that one.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll start just with a quick business intro of Adaptic, and then we'll jump into some Q&A. So Adaptic was founded back in 2019, and they specialize in software development, systems engineering, and data science, with a strong focus on supporting the intelligence community. And a big thanks for that transition was with Aaron. So we're going to talk about that here in a bit. With over 100 years of combined experience across public and private sectors, their team delivers innovative data-driven solutions that empower organizations. Adaptic is known for blending technical expertise with business insight, ensuring their solutions align with real-world challenges. As a trusted partner and technical advisor, they continue to grow steadily, expanding their impact across agencies and industries. Did I do it justice, Aaron?
Yes, absolutely. And I did want to clarify that she did ask me ahead of time if I'd like to give the description of Adaptic. I said, absolutely not. So great work.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. So we've worked together for quite a long time now, ever since I started with Horizon 3 last year. And it's been a great time working with you and getting to know you and Adaptic and your use case with Node Zero. But I kind of want to start back in time about your background. We can dive into that first. So you went to business school, earned a business degree, and initially set out to become an accountant. But spoiler alert, you ultimately ended up in cybersecurity, as we probably all know here today. So you shared you were always split between IT and finance. So tell us about that shift and what led you from accounting to a career in cybersecurity.
Yeah, after borderline failing most of my accounting classes in college and looking at a potential CPA exam in my future, I decided, this is definitely not the path for me. I did have a couple of, accounting related positions up until maybe 15 years ago. However, all those positions crossed management information systems, such as one company was using paper cards for inventory. And then, the one class where I got an A+ in, which was Microsoft Access back in college, I realized that databases were my strong suit. So while I continued down the accounting path, as I built up my skills between databases, business intelligence, exception reporting, and all things analytics, that's where I kind of steered myself along the way. And a lot of these companies I work for were also cyber poor. So we had no IT budget. We would be operational. However, the network would be running slow. So I'd do some digging around and, oh, we don't have any antivirus software installed on any of the computers, despite we actually paid for it last year. So, since we didn't have any budget and I'm here, the person in charge of the purse strings, and I care more about people getting paid than, bring on IT staff, just because some of these companies were also financially poor. This is an opportunity for me to use, some of my capabilities and common sense and, start applying some of the cybersecurity principles across these companies, and even leading to today where, kind of a dual hat between CFO and CIO. But even up until before forming the company, I was a financial system consultant specializing in migrating financial systems. So even whether it's, my data or not my data, leveraging the skills I just kind of carried along. And it is a very unique skill set between split between accounting and the IT cybersecurity side.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, you touched on that these smaller companies, right? They don't have the budget for cybersecurity tools. And then not everybody has somebody like yourself that's going to step in and be able to provide those that expertise to the company. So we'll dive into that here a little later, how we can help that. But I guess let's talk about Adaptic, where you spent over a decade in consulting before that, and then you started and where you actually deployed Adaptic into the government contract industry to support the intelligence community. So if we can pivot into that, share a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, it was all kind of hinged on, being part-time on a program here in Maryland that focused on business intelligence analytics. whether it's business system data or cybersecurity data, I kind of was data agnostic. And being part-time, the prime that I was under offered a facility clearance for us. And despite my wife being pregnant with twins at the time, she's like, I can't come on board with you, but go ahead and do it. And so far we haven't looked back since. And originally, the smaller you are, the more you have to kind of sell yourself with the whole kind of chicken and egg relationship. But as we built relationships in this industry and the work products that we do, and insight and forethought into our government customers as well, and trying to be one step ahead of where they are in supporting them, that's what's been our focus and how we can really attribute to a lot of our success.
Great, great. Okay. So then kind of talk about the dual hat role that you play. I know a lot of customers that I work with, especially in the federal space, the people we work with, they have to do that as well, right? So their day is full from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., right? They're working nonstop, working in these multiple roles, wearing multiple hats. Kind of tell us about your day-to-day with Adaptic and how you manage that.
Yeah, a lot of it was efficiency and automation. So I've worked for companies where they've had distinct payroll people and or distinct accountants. I automate as much as I can. Our payroll process takes maybe 5 minutes. I have automated a lot of the reporting and financials that we do. So at the end of the day, while I am the CFO, at the same time, I'm not doing any of the transactional activity. And same thing with the cybersecurity tools I employ as a CIO. I'm looking to streamline, what do I need to focus on? What do I care about? What do I not care about? And also, I'm always focused on what is revenue generating versus what is an expense generation. So downtime for us would be non-revenue generating. Same thing with people not being able to get their timesheets in due to system outages, and that leads to billing, which leads to cash flow. So it's the importance of making it easy on our employees for them to have access to the tools they need, but also keeping a tight grasp on our network. The two kind of work hand in hand.
Awesome. So we actually just got a question kind of along those lines from Gary. He said, there's no ROI on cybersecurity tools. Can you share how that conversation goes with upper management? This might be helpful since you're in upper management.
Yeah, and so I would be selling the cost of this to my wife, who's our CEO. But same thing. It's a lot of executives who don't have a firm grasp of the importance of cybersecurity. And especially these days, it's not just loss of data; it could be financial losses too through phishing and the numerous approaches. The number of times I've been to our bank in discussions, or even discussions with our banker, I'm like, yeah, what are some new stories we have this month? And every month they have new fraud cases, and just people have been taken advantage of through electronic means. And whatever I can do to stop that at the door to our infrastructure, whether it's employing email security, network security, reducing brute force attacks, that way credentials are not being stolen. All of that protects cash, and a lot of executives understand cash is king. So there is a cost to cybersecurity tools, but the best way to sell that to an executive is going to, how can this be seen as revenue generating, or if it's or contributing to revenue? So, and I always go back to that timesheet comment, because in the government sector, we live and die by timesheets. And if timesheets aren't in, we're not getting paid. And I have somebody that is complaining that they can't log in. Well, yeah, because you have a VPN on one platform and you're showing two different physical IDs. Well, obviously that's going to block you from logins. But also, understanding where and why that could also occur as well. So having user-friendly policies also helps. But at the same time, it's if you are faced with trying to get some type of cybersecurity tools approved, always think, what would I want to hear as a CEO that isn't going to cost me money, but is going to improve our overall operations?
Yep, exactly. And the way I like to think about it is, I mean, you really don't get the ROI for cybersecurity tools until something goes wrong, right? So it's kind of like insurance. You pay every month, your car insurance, your house insurance. You don't really see an ROI on that until your house floods, right? Or you get in a car wreck. So same thing with cybersecurity tools. If you don't have them, then your cost is going to be a lot higher if you aren't protected and that bad day comes than if you were. So along those lines, how have you seen cybersecurity change over the years, and what are the things that keep you up at night?
I would say the trickiness and how intelligent the adversaries are getting. So I will actually utilize one of my personal examples, which is still sore, but we sponsor the Annapolis soccer team, and adversaries actually went into the team's emails and were able to kind of see it, and they started communicating with me, and I was able to pick up on it. But at the same time, it's like who I was communicating with aren't the same people that I thought the emails were from. So yeah, I was able to help them get them secured, make sure that there aren't any issues. But at the same time, it's who you think you're talking to necessarily isn't going to be that same person, and the tools that are being deployed. And it's also, the busier we are, the more stretched thin we are from a time standpoint. Executives are always going to be the target, and my parents, like my late father, fell victim to a number of scams. Rather than text me, say something's wrong. But the older you get, the less in tune you are going to be with cybersecurity. So look at overall, most executives are going to be of an older demographic, and they're also the biggest target because they also control so many of the if you're CFO, financial, CEO, other types of strategic that could be coming from companies that are interested in stealing your innovative secrets or whatever. So it's the tools that are being employed currently are just mind-boggling. But now once you start introducing AI and lack of AI security, and what even just scrolling on Reddit, trying to figure out, is this actually a real post or is this done by AI? And same with the comments, it is getting to be extremely difficult. So whatever tools we can employ to mitigate this kind of risk is huge in my opinion. But what's this landscape going to be 1 year, 5 years from now? It's going to be interesting, because I can only see the fraud and all the other related issues just increasing exponentially. And eventually banks are not going to say, okay, let me, sorry about that, let me give your money back. That people are going to be financially harmed by this.
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of times, right, it is like user error. So the bank isn't going to reimburse you for that if
Yep.
you make a mistake. So yeah, that's very worrisome. So kind of want to pivot into Adaptic's role in the intelligence community and in the supply chain, because that's really important to a lot of people here. So to give a bit of background on Adaptic, it is a DIB. So it's part of the Defense Industrial Base. That's what DIB stands for, which refers to the network of companies that develop, produce, and maintain technology, systems, and services critical to national security. So they're part of that whole supply chain that provides the weapons, infrastructure, consulting services, all those things that go into our military and our defense. So the DIB is essentially the backbone of our military and defense operations, ensuring that the US and its allies stay secure and operationally ready. So Adaptic is one of these DIBs that are part of the, in essence, supply chain for the US government. So can you tell us why it's so important for companies like you to be protected from cyber threats?
Yeah, and I go back to when CMMC was, initially just coming out, and I'm like, what's the big deal? Yeah, I have some, FOUO documents or CUI, and then you start realizing all the different flavors, and you can read enough unclassified documents, you kind of start putting pieces of the puzzle together. So it is not just your company that is a target, it is all companies. And once you start aggregating all this documentation in mass across the entire federal government, including especially those who are DIB-based companies. This is not just companies that are supporting aircraft manufacturers or weapons providers. It's even if you're providing services, you're going to have documentation on your network, most likely this leads to alluding to what you could or may be doing for those particular programs. So once you compile all of that, and then I'll kind of pick on AI again and the trends I'm seeing there, and using AI to compile all this information, in just vast amounts of data. If these adversaries are gaining access to our networks, grabbing that information, bringing it back to their home country, the data is already lost. So whatever we can do to mitigate that risk, and it's also a risk to the individual company too. Do I want my name on the front of a paper that says, we're responsible for, loss of data? Absolutely not. So there's a big push, at least for me, to never be a data point, and or be an example as to what not to do.
Amen to that. So you mentioned CMMC. Can you double click on that a bit and share what that is for those who aren't in the government sector?
Yeah, that's the capabilities maturity model. Insert the last word that starts with a C. Certification. I think there's 3 different levels to it. You know, we're really shooting for level one. And again, I'm putting my CFO hat on. I really don't want to have to get to level two, in particular level three, just for consulting costs. No offense if you're listening and you are a consulting firm, but we are going to do everything we can to secure our networks. But it's just from our growth is mainly focused on being very cost competitive to our employees, and that's and taking care of them. And if we do need to get to level two or level three, we are prepared for it. For us, it's not a contractual requirement yet, but we do meet all the flow downs. And a lot of it can range from basic cybersecurity hygiene to some more detailed concepts such as options for MFA, what is best practice, or even mobile devices, etc.
Yeah, because it is quite a process, right, to go through that. And it's a newer development that the government's requiring of the DIBs, right? To like the C3PAO, all those organizations, you have to go through them. And then it is newer, right? CMMC, and everybody has to
Yes, I want to say when I first started to take it seriously was right around when COVID hit. So that's when I migrated us into a GCC high environment and started the whole kind of lockdown process. And I don't know what the requirements are going to be 5 years from now, but let me start the process now. So if and when the requirements are made and the flowdowns are occurring, which I am seeing in our prime contracts or our subcontracts rather, that we're already prepared for what's coming at us.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so attackers, we are seeing more and more are going after the little guys, right? Rather than the big guys, the Raytheons, the Boeings. They're trying to get in those smaller DIBs and then work their way up from there, right? And as you said, they can get all that information and then aggregate it over time. And then before you know it, they have more information than we ever thought they could ever get. So that easier attack surface is usually there because DIBs and these smaller companies don't have the budget to maintain the cybersecurity posture that they need, as you alluded to earlier in one of the questions. So Adaptic is part of the Continuous Autonomous Pen Testing Program, which is a partnership between us and the Cybersecurity Collaboration Center, which is the public arm of the NSA. So if you could share how you learned about the CCC program and how that program has helped Adaptic.
And to be honest, I look back, I can't remember where I heard it from, but I have seen their, a lot of their marketing at various conferences through FCA, which is the Armed Forces Communication Electronics Association, and other various, cybersecurity related publications. So they're definitely out there all over the place. And what I am the biggest fan of is while they may not check any of the NIST boxes directly, in aggregate, they are helping defend. So, whereas I would not typically procure something like node zero, no offense, having the service provided helps really give me eyes where I can't see. And after running my penetration tests against my company, I realized how many gaps in exposure I actually do have that I was not aware of before. So being able to have this kind of visibility into my own company where when faced with budgetary challenges and not having the actual financial, we're not Raytheon, so we're not going to have the SOC and tools that they have. We are still a small family owned company, and despite being approaching a mid smaller size company, that for us the resources still aren't there and wouldn't be there for some time until we had, say, cost plus contracts where we could bake that into our rates.
Okay, so then on that note, can you share how Node Zero and this program, right, getting these free services, has had an impact on Adaptic and then your environment?
Sure. I'll actually pick on my first external penetration test, and what came back was a rogue printer. And I'm like, well, this is interesting. That my biggest vulnerability is a printer that can accept remote printing. Where that's easy is kids are on their iPads, they want to print something for school, they can just point at the printer, all things are fine. And then, I log into my firewall and, pull up the IP address of the printer and look at the network activity. I'm like, so no one's printed to this printer in the past day, yet it's uploaded and downloaded a few hundred megs of data per day for indefinitely how long. I don't know exactly what this printer is doing, but that gives me something that I need to want to address. Just because I don't know what data is being sent, where that data is being sent to, is my printer being used for a proxy for some adversary, which would probably be not good for my home, which is where that printer is located. But just using that as an example, and like where I say, I putting eyes where I can't see. Do I have a bad PHP version off a web server someplace that is causing X, Y, or Z to happen, whether it's within our network or someplace else as a proxy. Just the ability to have visibility like that is absolutely amazing.
And we see that a lot. The printer issue, you think it's like this benign device in your network, right? Like, oh, I don't need to scan that. I just send stuff, get jobs there to print, right? But that is honestly an entry point that we see a lot with a lot of organizations. So that just goes to show, right? Even if your organization, you all work from home, and you don't have any like physical infrastructure, you go into an office, Node Zero can still work for you. Just run it in your home network, see what you get. All of us run it when we first start working here. We all run it at home. So that is a use case that you can still use. Don't think you just have to have like the huge server room, right? And then you can use Node Zero. Anybody can use Node Zero. So if you're in that boat, reach out to us. We'd love to help you out. So you can find rogue printers like Aaron found. We have a question in the Q&A from Crystal. What are you seeing as the largest, most impactful attack vector affecting your organization?
So I minimize all of my attack vectors into or Azure authentication. And the reason why I do that is that way I can block so many things before it even gets to that authentication point. So even if it is international logins, repeated IP attempts, by focusing on a single sign-on environment with MFA. So if you have a new sign-on, it'll trigger MFA. I don't require MFA every time. But also, and we, again, like with a number of our people in a SCIF, I have to make this remotely easy. So mobile authenticator apps not going to happen because you lose your cell phone immediately if you bring it into a SCIF. But so we do employ other options, but also smart security. So I'll require MFA every 90 days or on a new device. So that way it's still secure, but not annoying to the end user. Because I also find that the more difficult you make say authentication with your network, the less, now I'm chasing timesheets at the end of the week. So it's probably not the most perfect answer, but that's one way that we do it is just by having the smallest aperture possible.
Perfect. Then one other question. The FBI says the following to protect your data: have a segmented network, patch your devices, and then best practices for your backups. Can you add anything else to this?
I would add, especially if you have work devices that you bring home, and you have kids, that stay on top of your kids' devices. So again, ran the Node Zero on my home network. I've got 3 iPads, 3 switches. Each one's running Minecraft, Fortnite, Roblox, who knows what else, each with a very varying degree of parental controls, network controls. Well, not a plug for firewall that helps me kind of have more controls over what's going in and out of the network. And again, I'm using Ubiquity devices for networking. So even if you are still work from home or have varying degrees of devices in your house, having that kind of layer protection, like such as Node Zero, helps you look at all the devices on your network, in particular IoT. So I'm addicted to the Philips Hue devices. And when I have like 80 different of those things floating around the house, I have no clue what they're doing on my network. So just ensuring that there's no nefarious activity that's outside of my control or knowledge.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I was going to touch on when we've talked about before that Node Zero gives you eyes where you can't see, which is so true. And it turns the map around, lets you see your environment from the eyes of an attacker. And you always said you needed something that points you to that needle in the haystack, and Node Zero has done that for you. Can you explain more about that, kind of how it's helped in that way?
Yeah, and I go back to my accounting background. So typically during a year-end audit, you're looking for anomalies in the data, what was categorized wrong, what was charged wrong. So and that's where I kind of built in the analytics side of my head, looking for exception reports. Now I'm looking for those needles in a haystack, and that's what allows me to become that efficient. So by focusing only on the needles, you're getting rid of the signal, the noise of that signal. You're getting rid of any of the static, and just by focusing on the things you care about, that's what's in front of you. That's what you need to focus on. If it's a high highly critical, vulnerability, that's going to be in, big red letters. If it's blue, I'll notate it because it's more informational, but at least this way it's, kind of categorizes things for me. What do I need to focus on? I've got 2 hours left in the week. I still need to, run a sanity check across my network. Has my secure score gone down? What other issues have transpired? In that 2 hours, that helps me maximize the amount of time.
Perfect. I would be remiss if I didn't ask this question as we're kind of nearing time. What advice would you give other DIBs or other members of any supply chain, right? On the commercial side as well. What advice would you give them?
Just because you're in a commercial cloud environment, whether it's Microsoft or Google or another person, you are not safe. Just by having that product, paints you as a target just because everyone's going to have the same google.com or on microsoft.com login aperture. But out of the box, those are not secure. There's both of them have their own suite of security tools. And even if you're not currently leveraging Node Zero or some of the other Cybersecurity Collaboration Center offerings, at the very least, take a look at your environment. And there's a lot of at least default settings that you can put into place that will immediately protect your environment, your data, and your people a lot more. Because don't forget, like on your network, you're going to have your employees' social security numbers. You're going to have their banking information if they send in direct deposit slips. There's a lot of PII out there that's sitting on your network that may not be protected like you think it is.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And Node Zero shows you that for sure. Okay, I think last question here. So we have a couple minutes left. Internal segmentation testing, external asset scanning, and finally the external and internal pen testing all build on top of each other. What have you seen that surprised you during the scans and then the internal pen testing? Have you made a move to leverage the AD password audit yet?
I have not leveraged the AD password audit, and up until now, I've never heard of that. So I will definitely be Googling that after this call. Somehow I've actually had a relatively benign internal scan. So I've not had anything high priority. The thing that really surprised me the most was actually the printer. But at the same time, I could easily see that if I did not set up my network with cybersecurity in mind, whether it's the encryption methods or the wireless security methods, the security of the SSID password, how things are shared, having ports open just so I can easily add and remove files from the laptop that's down in the basement who has, that has a network share on it. Yeah, if I didn't, develop the network and with that in mind, I would probably have a much different readout. But at the same time, this gives me the assurance that what I set up originally is still within best practice of standard cybersecurity hygiene.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out, like people run tests like you did, right? And you get relatively benign results, nothing critical, nothing high really when you run it. But if you just do that single snapshot in time, okay, you're looking good right now. But one thing can change in your network. You can add an employee, you could add a server, you could add a workstation, and that completely opens the floodgates to a bunch of issues, right? So if you're not doing that continuous security assessment using Node Zero, then you would never know that. And then you'd say, oh, well, 5 months ago, I was secure, right? I didn't have any issues in my network. Everything were lows. But then now you added something and now you have a bunch of criticals and highs in your network, right? Or the latest and greatest CVE came out and you had no idea about it because you weren't using Node Zero Rapid Response. So we want you to be using this continuously so you can see that. So good use case for you guys, right? If you run it again next week, you might get some highs. So definitely keeping up that regular cadence of pen tests is very important. Okay, so I think we have about 1 minute left. Anything else you'd like to share with everyone, Aaron, before we leave?
No, valid point on your last comment there that, I find that every time there's an operating system or application update, more things break than are actually fixed. So, again, just, from a, trend standpoint, run it on a recurring basis, set up your recurring pen tests, internal, external, review the results. Reviewing the results is very quick, but it also gives you, can I sleep tonight or not, type dreams.
Perfect. Okay, answering this last question here. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, Aaron, and thank you everyone for joining. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We are always here to help. Everyone have a great rest of your day.